You out here looking bad, preying on children again.
Oh hell no, I don't fuck.
Peacefully.
Cool.
I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed.
Hey, I hope those women follow you, homie. I hope they follow you, bro. I got kids.
Pedophiles are probably the most contemptible group in all of society. Despite how vigorously some of the accused have been defended, you won't be able to find many people who are willing to endorse the act of copulating with a child. So, logically, anyone who stands up to pedophiles is going to be fairly uncontroversial and seen as a righteous person. At least, that's the idea behind Dads Against Predators, a vigilante group that has made a name for itself at the forefront of the movement to catch these pedophiles.
Give me that shit, bro. Give me that shit before I fuck your ass up, bro.
Now, let's rewind for a sec. The idea of a pedophile is actually relatively new in society, with the term only entering the public lexicon starting in the 1970s. This is not to say that the behaviors are new, but rather that the stigma itself is. The United States and wider Anglosphere is where this trend has been most apparent, but it's by no means exclusive. In case you don't believe me, the age of consent in most of America in 1880 was 10. In Delaware at one point it was 7. It was only in 1982 that the Supreme Court ruled that child sexual abuse materials were not protected by the First Amendment. After that, and a series of mid to late century revelations, the idea of a pedophile became a stock villain in American life more and more. The first major instance of this was arguably the printing of missing children on the side of milk cartons beginning in the early 1980s. This was also the first of the campaigns that seemed too wholesome to disagree with, and asked the public to be subjected to some mild discomfort for the purpose of saving children. Morally, it was like donating to charity without opening your wallet. And what will become a very common theme going forward, this seemingly altruistic effort had a negligible effect on the safety of children and was used to benefit the owners of milk companies with tax breaks. This is a good time to get a very important statistic out of the way. 90% of children who are abused by someone they know and trust. The white van and candy style methods, where a stranger forcibly kidnaps a child, are exceedingly rare, with the number of children taken by strangers making up around 0.06% of all cases of child kidnapping. Predators are also now able to use online tools to find victims, with one study citing 15.6% of respondents having experienced some form of online abuse from ages 13 to 17. The same study found that up to 79.5% of perpetrators were individuals that the victim knew from offline. So with those statistics in mind, it's time to talk about Dads Against Predators.
Hey, who you here to meet? Read my shirt.
Dap gonna get you. Dap gonna.
You know what it is.
Hey.
Hatched in a way befitting only the most virtuous causes, Dads Against Predators was created as a YouTube channel on January 26, 2020. The channel has since been taken down, but the Facebook group boasts over 38,000 members. DAP roughly models itself after Perverted Justice, the group made famous by To Catch a Predator. There are lots of similar groups to DAP, but from what I can tell, it is currently the largest one that is running a Hansen-style operation.
When we first started, we had an online watchdog group called Perverted Justice. And that's how we started. We found out about Perverted Justice, and these volunteers posed as kids online, and when somebody would make a date to meet and they got their identity, they would just post this person's identity on their website. And that's when I wondered, well, if we could partner with them and wire a house with hidden cameras and microphones and use their ability to, be kids online, this could be powerful. And that's how it started.
Dads Against Predators has gotten a fair bit of buzz in the media since it started. Both Vice and the Daily Caller have done documentaries on the group. But the coverage of DAP has been fairly surface level. The criticisms only go as deep as those law enforcement has about the group's tactics. Given that police departments have showcased an inability to prevent sexual assault at best, and a tendency to commit it at worst, it is not unreasonable for their concerns to be brushed aside. Looking at comments online, I saw almost universal praise for DAP. Beyond the obvious merits of catching pedophiles, DAP was held up as a kind of gold standard for which other online pedophile catchers are held to. While kick streamers have rappers with a lot of free time on their hands to catch predators, it is treated with somewhat of a degree of skepticism by the wider public. These kick streamers are also paying these rappers a sum of at least $50,000 to come on their streams, and the purpose of the streams is pretty clearly more to prank than deliver justice. In fact, it's doubtful if the people featured in these kick streams are predators at all, and are more likely just paid actors by the streamers themselves that will not have to face any legal liability after what happens on stream. On the topic of those kick streamers, one of them actually got in trouble recently, and I wanted to have a friend of mine on to talk about it.
Here to present Entertainer of the Year, please welcome to this stage the Queen and the Chancellor of YouTube, Jenna Marbles and Flula!
Nobody expected to see me here.
Now, these kick streamers are something of a different breed when it comes to predator catching, focusing more on guest appearances by rappers and gambling on their phones than the industrial scale output of Dads Against Predators. Of all the kick streamers, the undisputed king was Vitaly. The disgraced former prank YouTuber gained a new lease on life with his Hanson-style sting operations, which brought on rappers and other kick streamers to confront the befuddled creeps in between gambling sessions staring at his phone. Vitaly also took after Hanson in the way he made these predator catches more akin to TV in terms of length, production budget, and marketing. Now, I did say Vitaly was the king because his ability to make these kinds of videos has been severely hampered recently due to his imprisonment in the Philippines. While you may assume that he was in the country to catch predators, that wasn't actually the case. He instead took time off the very important task of yelling at creeps with Lil Pump to embark on the noble crusade of stealing hats off security guards, threatening to rob old ladies, and generally being a public nuisance. Vitaly's behavior was apparently so blatant and reprehensible that it got the attention of the president of the Philippines, who addressed it in what might be the first live reaction YouTube video from a world leader.
I'm gonna rob you.
Hindi naman Pilipino, pwede ko mamurahin.
President Bongbong Marcos uploaded a video after Vitaly's arrest where he narrates over headlines regarding the disruptive behavior of several other kick streamers. Marcos has crucially decided he will not deport Vitaly to either his native Russia or the United States. While not deporting someone might sound like a gesture of mercy, it's quite the opposite in Vitaly's case. Instead of simply being barred from re-entry into the country, Vitaly is potentially in for something much worse. Judging by the news stories cited in this video, President Marcos seems to be taking inspiration from the case of fellow kick streamer Johnny Somali, who is currently facing over 35 years in South Korean prison for charges relating to public disturbance as well as sexual misconduct. Vitaly's maximum sentence is 24 years, but Johnny would be spending his extra time in a furnished, low-security prison designed specifically to house foreigners, while Vitaly is looking at less years overall, but inside a prison system infamous for overcrowding, human rights abuses, and gang activity. Vitaly's time in the Philippines penal system is probably not going to be made easier by the fact that he had the president personally using his streams to fertilize an industrial-scale state-run aura farm. Mind you, President Marcos is not exactly popular, which means that teeing off on a loud foreigner that made a career out of bothering people is, unfortunately for Vitaly, a no-brainer. If we are to believe Vitaly's actual goal was to catch predators and stop them through either punishment or by scaring off future predators, what does it say about Vitaly that he's put that supposedly noble project on hold for potentially decades in favor of traveling halfway across the world to harass old ladies? It makes you wonder if any of this was ever actually about protecting kids.
I'm just like, fuck these permanents. Fuck, I told from the beginning, it's not his fault. I told about Jordan. Fuck these permanents, fuck doing this legal shit. I got into my life where I'm at today by taking risks in life. People told me not to streak the World Cup. People told me NBA Finals. People told me I'm gonna get stuck in Brazil for the rest of my life. Pyramids, I'm gonna go to jail for the rest of my life. And I'm still standing here.
The primary difference between Dap and Dateline is law enforcement integration. Dap does not seem to have a dedicated relationship with any police department or federal law enforcement office. They have been known to get people arrested and charged, but officers are rarely, if ever, on the scene and informed. There are also more obvious differences, production quality being one, and the lack of fully disclosed chat logs being the other. What ends up happening is a version of Hansen's program with a lot less red tape, sometimes for the better, but mostly for the worse.
Two dads taking matters into their own hands to catch child predators across the nation. Reporter Alyssa Munoz is here with what led them to southeastern New Mexico.
It's not clear how many predators have been caught by Dap, but the number claimed by the group's leadership was over 400 in April of 2024. This number is almost impossible to verify, but I assume it was at least vaguely related to the number of people that have had videos made about them on the channel. What is a lot more uncertain is how many total arrests and convictions have been made because of the group's work. There have been some for sure, but there isn't a list or method of tracking these arrests by the group. Dads Against Predators exists what I like to see as sort of a moral sweet spot that makes publicly voicing concerns about them and their tactics difficult for the uninitiated to make. Essentially, nobody wants to be the person that is arguing against the punishment of predators, and if you have some other complaint about them, it's usually not worth the effort. This is why serious critics tend to be limited to law enforcement, who hold some claim to also working to catch these predators. But the problems in the group go much deeper than just disagreements with police. A host of legal issues, contradictions, and moral failings lay just underneath the surface, shielded from criticism by the seemingly pure intentions of its leaders. But once you pull back the facade and start to look at Dads Against Predators in a manner that is even slightly critical, the issues with DAP are revealed to be the bedrock of the entire organization. The first main issue that DAP has is incompetence. They are almost completely incapable of making these predators face any consequences after the camera stops rolling. The implicit idea behind exposing predators is that law enforcement does an inadequate job at punishing them. Therefore, it falls to civilians to do the job of exposing predators and using the internet to raise awareness of these individuals who will be known as predators when their names are looked up. But if we look at this on a practical scale, the DAP model is completely unsustainable. Think of it this way. It takes a significant amount of attention to get someone's name associated with a crime they committed. About 60% of video titles didn't even use a name. For example, local dad is a pedophile, which I'm sure he is, but 30% use a first name. For example, Anthony Gets Smacked Part 1. Again, I'm sure he did. And the remaining 10% actually used a first and last name that would be theoretically searchable by employers or neighbors. In this 10%, I found what it looked like when DAP did their most thorough documentation for concerned citizens, a video titled Tool Time Tim Taylor from September of 2023. Alright, so we have our perp, this Tim Taylor guy. I didn't realize that that was also the name of Tim Allen's character in Home Improvement, but I guess it's just a coincidence. Otherwise, there's very little to go on here. The state this man is in is not given, and I had to comb through the footage to find license plates to confirm that it was in fact in Ohio. But besides that, it's anyone's guess as to where this is taking place, as the suburb they're in is a seemingly recent development without many identifying features. Once they do get to Taylor's house, he's interrogated on camera about his messages.
So listen, I got a question to ask. So listen. Did you not say, come in, we're going to do our thing upstairs?
I didn't say that.
Go on
we have all the text
messages.
And eventually drives off, ending the video. So what was the impact of this video? Is this creep being named and shamed throughout all of Ohio? No, not at all. DAP doesn't do any work to raise public awareness after posting these videos that goes beyond adding a name to the title occasionally when they feel like it. The videos themselves don't even come up on Google search results because they're locked behind an account you have to make on the website DAP uses, although we'll get back to that later. Furthermore, there is nothing to suggest this man has faced any consequences based on the information given. Nobody on the Ohio Sex Offender Registry has the name Tim or Timothy Taylor, and I wasn't able to find someone with that name that worked in home repair and matched this guy's description. It was mostly Tim Allen stuff, to be fair, meaning that DAP hasn't done anything to make this predator change his behavior besides some additional caution. But what if we assume that DAP still has only the purest of intentions for their actions and there's no external motivations? Well, even then, what we have is a group of well-meaning oafs that are trying to manage a public awareness campaign that is well above their level of expertise. These operations seem to only span a few screenshots worth of text exchanges and aren't followed up on in any public capacity. The guys who make these videos don't appear to have any particular skills that make them better at it than anyone else. They aren't using an ultra-sophisticated method to flush serial abusers out from hiding. The extent of this operation is just catfishing at the end of the day. One of the founders of DAP, Joshua Mundy, who we'll get back to later, boasted that the group had caught 16 predators in a 4-day stint. If you watched To Catch a Predator, you'd know that the cases took weeks and sometimes even months to assemble to ensure that there was enough material to implicate the titular predator. With less personnel, less time, and way more videos than Hansen, the quality of these investigations is immediately called into question. In fact, given the multiple multiple issues that Hansen's program faced already and the serious ethical issues it led to, it stands to reason that Dap's negative impacts are at least a magnitude larger. On the Kid L podcast, which I think would have been a better name for To Catch a Predator, but that's just me, Bundy told the host that their strategy is to spend time in a town until they've deemed the predators to be scared off, before moving on to another town. This isn't a method used by law enforcement to deal with sexual predators in any capacity that I could find, and in fact is closer to Vietnam War era search and destroy missions used by the Americans. During search and destroy, American troops would drop into an area of suspected Viet Cong activity, engage suspected hostiles, and then leave the area. Forward enough. I don't bring this up to compare the Viet Cong to pedophiles, but rather to point out that this wasn't an effective tactic even when used against an enemy that was working as part of a coherent movement and constantly communicating with each other. There is no unified pedophile community that will get the message from this, and the closest thing to a centralized meeting place for pedophiles already has rappers making videos with Vitaly on it. So, granted, some of Dap's videos have resulted in arrests by police, but the videos themselves do nothing to help the case of the police, and give those being recorded a number of new ways to wriggle out of charges. In Sandusky, where the group originated, the local police told Dap explicitly to disband, as they were only making it harder to catch predators.
But police say prosecutors can't charge the people the group finds, and others in the community say the work is dangerous and should be left to law enforcement.
There's enough road rage and things going on where, give everybody the finger, and then you find out that they're crazier than you are, and you've just escalated a situation. You haven't disarmed it at all.
Mundy disputes that, saying he's just trying to do the right thing.
I don't consider myself doing anything different than filming a car accident and posting it on YouTube. In Ohio, I have the right to film anything I want. It doesn't matter what a third party says. They chose to come meet me. I'm down to work with any police. I want these guys locked up just as much as anybody else.
So why do they even record these videos? That brings us to our next big problem.
I'm on Epstein's Island, we got boys for days.
She says she only 13, call me Jeffrey Epstein.
I got that pedophile money.
Well, the sex offender registry is available to the public at all times through the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. So here's how to access it, starting with the web version.
So if I was trying to raise awareness of a particular person's activities to the general public, I would probably start by putting their name out there, somewhere on a public forum. Dap has proven not to be the best at this whole names aspect, but maybe that's fine. Names can change, faces can't. This is why they put up the videos of these predators. So even if it isn't perfect, there's still a chance that these videos can be shared by anyone hoping to raise awareness, right? This is the part where it becomes very difficult to continue giving these guys the benefit of the doubt. If you want access to roughly half the videos that Dap posts, then you're going to have to cough up at least $24 a month for access to both of the founders' accounts on Local, the platform they use. Or you can pay over $200 up front to cover year-long subscriptions to both of the founders' accounts on Locals. What this means is that the people running Dap have deemed that some predators, by their own definition, are of less concern to the public than others. This is the best case scenario. We can only hope that the most dangerous pedophiles aren't being locked behind these paywalls, but my faith in these men is growing rather thin. There are some pedophiles that the public will need to pay money to know about and see pictures of. They are required to do this. There is no way that they will be able to get a positive visual ID on these pedophiles, on these people that are messaging children potentially in their community, unless they pay at least $12 a month or sometimes over $100 at once for a yearly subscription. Originally, Dap made money through YouTube monetization. This was arguably a more noble way to go about it, as the videos were available for anyone to watch. However, YouTube's guidelines did not mesh well with Dap, and they eventually got taken down. If we believe what Dap wants us to believe about their work, where they are doing something incredibly important to public welfare, the paywall becomes even more egregious. They are running a kind of protection racket, where access to information about potential pedophiles in a neighborhood has to be bought by the people living there. On the sidebar of Joshua Mundy's Local page is a box that indicates Dap has over 10,000 new supporters. Locals doesn't let you see how many members a channel has specifically, but it could be well over 10,000 at this point. If you remember, these are supporters paying $11 to $12 a month, meaning that this member of Dap is making 6 figures monthly, even when you take the 10% platform fee that Locals has into account. This is a lot of money, especially for an operation of what I can surmise is at most 5 dudes. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with making a lot of money because your content is popular. I know people that have found themselves in that situation almost on accident. But what differentiates Dap from the guys that I know is that the latter is under no illusion that their work is supremely necessary and moral in the way that the former sees itself. There's no difference in the types of videos on the public feed and those on the private feed on locals. This means that Dap is insulating some predators from the public in a completely arbitrary fashion. The reason for this price is apparently to allow us to continue producing content. Even if that is just the default tagline on locals, it's still why you should apparently be supporting these guys. The issue here is that the production quality on these videos has not changed at all. They're still recorded on shaky phone cameras. There doesn't seem to be a more sophisticated setup process than just a short grinder conversation. Mundy himself recently posted that the videos he's uploading are stuck in 340p, making it very difficult to tell who these pedophiles even are if you can get a good look at them. In fact, the only real change that the money has made is that Dap will now fly to random cities to do these catches, and the shoes they're wearing are nicer. I gave a brief rundown of Dap's history at the beginning of the article, but it obviously wasn't the entire story. Even when Dap started, its attitude towards traditional law enforcement was uneasy at best. The first mention of Dap in news coverage, their nasty habit of getting banned makes it hard to find anything from earlier, comes from a local NBC affiliate in Fremont, Ohio. The article mentions both the early successes of Dap with their operations and the issues law enforcement had with their methods. Sandusky County prosecutor Zachary Selvey is quoted saying about the kinds of operations that Dap has conducted.
There's a statute in Ohio called the importuning statute, which is what we believe cases such as these would fall under. And it can create issues if the person involved is not a law enforcement officer or an actual minor child.
Dap leaders spoken to in the article are Joshua and Jay, which refers to Joshua Mundy and Jay Carnicom. These two have been running the show Interrupted from the start. Ohio natives, Joshua is from Fremont and Jay is from Toledo. Both are interesting in their own right, and both have certain eccentricities that manifested both before and during their time with Dap. I'll start with Mundy.
No, I ain't. This man is here to meet a 13-year-old girl.
I couldn't find much on Joshua Mundy's early life, but that doesn't mean he's a ghost. The largest digital footprint left by Mundy is in the website of the Fremont Municipal Court, where his name is attached to 25 separate cases. 15 of these are traffic, 1 is civil, and 9 are criminal cases. But one in particular interests me, 2100031. That's the number of the case against Mundy where he was found guilty of violating section 2923.02 of the Ohio Revised Code on April 20th, 2021. Mundy had attempted to inflict physical harm upon the defendant, one Keith Harris. Based on Dap's modus operandi, it's possible that Harris interacted with one of the organization's decoy accounts and had decided to meet up. When he got to the meeting place, he was instead greeted by Mundy, who threatened him repeatedly before Harris left and/or the police arrived. As of writing this, there is no Keith Harris on the Ohio Sex Offender Registry. Outside of criminal proceedings, Mundy is a member of the duo that appears to be more media savvy. His sense of style is more obvious in how he dresses and carries himself. I think the best way to demonstrate the difference between Mundy and Carnicom is this screenshot of the Garage Boozing podcast, where the former has a lighting set up in his room with carefully hung flags, and the latter is smoking weed in his car. Mundy represents what I consider to be the commercial side of Dap. He was the one who was doing early catches with aspiring rappers in Ohio. The single contact email on Dap's website appears to be Mundy's, and I feel safe in assuming this means that he handles most of the business deals and media appearances. When he appears on podcasts, Mundy is usually the one complaining about monetization of the group's YouTube channel being taken away. I'll give some choice quotes from Mundy on a recent video. I grew up on Martin Luther King. I don't give a fuck if you're black or white. I grew up playing sports. If you want street violence, go watch Jay's video. Jay beats the shit out of them. I should never have to explain myself. I've done this for fucking a long time. 80% of smacks are agreed upon because I'm not trying to go to jail. I'm leaving a situation where I just got charged for assault. This brings us to the second member of the Dap duo, Jay Carnicom. Also from Ohio, Carnicom is a childhood friend of Mundy. There are emotional aspects of Carnicom that I find interesting, but there's a less complex way that he differentiates himself. Stating it in the kindest possible terms, Jay Carnicom is a complete fucking moron. Carnicom has not gotten better at catching predators in the 5 years he's been doing it. He has his own locals page where he locks a lot of these catches behind a paywall, in fact. But the one thing that is not paywalled are some of the conversations that he has with these apparent predators. In these conversations, Carnicom repeatedly messes up very basic details that would tip off one of these predators to the fact that he is deceiving them. My favorite one of these fuck-ups is the one where he tried to convince someone he was a 14-year-old and talked about how much of a great driver he was. Mistakes like this should not be happening if this is your job. We'll never know how many of these catches were aborted because of mistakes like these, but we're supposed to believe that each catch is a child saved and society improved for the better. If this is the case, then Carnicom's incompetence has likely resulted in some really horrible things. Of course, if we see this as what it really is, which is just content, then Carnicom is still a very shitty content creator who hasn't attempted to improve his craft in the half a decade he's been working on it. But beyond the stunning lack of competence lies something deeper, more primordial to the soul. Hey, thanks for watching the video. I just wanted to say quick that if you could like, comment, subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. I wouldn't normally ask this, but given the subject matter, I'm not entirely confident that this video is going to be able to stay monetized and is going to be liked by the algorithm. So if you could just do that extra bit to help, that would be greatly appreciated. You can also follow me on my Substack and Twitter, which will be in the description. Thanks. Jay Carnicom is the hearts of Dads Against Predators mission. Well, Josh does the logistics and the branding. It's Jay that truly made DAP stand out as an organization. As alluded to in one of the Monday quotes, the way that Jay makes DAP unique is through violence. Carnicom is currently wanted in Hall County, Nebraska for assault to cause bodily harm. The violent aspect of DAP is something that connects deeply with the human psyche, and the male psyche in particular. It's something that most men watching this will probably recognize. In contemporary life, men rarely encounter situations where we have to get into a physical fight. This is generally a good thing. Young men usually realize war is hell pretty quickly after enlisting, and there are non-violent legal routes to rectify most wrongs. But the violence doesn't go away, and there are still definitely people that deserve to have harm inflicted upon them. If not on a legal level, then at least on a moral one. Getting to dominate a person that did something objectively wrong is a very real fantasy for a lot of people, not even just men. Stand your ground laws make this fantasy a possible reality and drive a large share of gun purchases in the United States. It's what drives many of what I call Facebook guy comments, where a news story about a crime being committed prompts certain guys to take to the comments to describe how he would have reacted if one of these guys tried that on him, I swear to God. It's wanting to be a hero, which is a chance rarely afforded to most people. Many women obviously also want to attain this, but I think it would be fair to say that the fantasy and urge to show off is more common in men, at least culturally. By definition, being a hero is difficult. It should go without saying, but if you want to be beloved and renowned, you'll have to show a great deal of bravery, dedication, and usually both. The closest you can get to being a hero through violence in the United States is by being one of those special forces operators who is really good at shooting people, and the fact that they were probably terrorists is a good enough justification. Still, this is a very limited group. So, what if you want to be a hero, but you don't have the time, skills, or motivation to be one? What if you act like a superhero, beating up criminals on the streets, protecting the innocent, all that? That would be pretty noble, but superheroes hide their identities so their alter egos aren't noticed, and they need to be gifted with powers or be extremely talented at something. This is a relatively easy fix. Here's the plan for being a real-life superhero based on the Dads Against Predators model. Number 1, instead of wearing a mask, make sure everyone knows it's you doing it. This way, you can skip to the end of the movie where people cheer for the vigilante after their identity is revealed. Number 2, always travel in a group with other superheroes. Criminals don't want to fight back if it's 3 against 1. Number 3, target criminals that no one would defend the actions of and lack powerful connections. Murders are relatively rare and gang members are far too dangerous for your operation. Potential child predators are the best option as they don't have a dedicated network and are likely to be pretty dim if they're falling for your decoys. Number 4, disregard law enforcement. You are acting on behalf of the people. At worst, you're doing what the corrupt cops won't do. At best, you're helping the cops out. Expect to use the former argument much more than the latter. Number 5, solicit customers for your content. Call these payments you need to keep your crusade going. Doing this shouldn't require any sacrifice from yourself, obviously, as your work is that important. Whoever heard of Bruce Wayne spending his own money? Number 6, never engage in any work outside what is profitable. If you did the last steps right, you won't need any extra praise. So trying to fix societal issues off camera is worthless to your brand. Encourage your followers to do something vague as a form of outsourcing. If you follow these correctly, you should never have to worry about personal, financial, or spiritual insecurity ever again. Time to return to the program's biggest success story. Carnicom is very fond of a particular tactic in his videos where he asks the apparent predator if he can slap. They usually oblige and then get slapped. It often quickly devolves into more impactful forms of violence before Carnicom and his entourage leave. The ends of these videos can quickly go from juvenile to bum fights levels of violence that are clearly meant for sheer sadistic pleasure. I think Jay assumes that if you ask someone before slapping them, then it's legal and completely protected, even though they are pretty clearly under what a court of law would consider duress in this situation. There's also instances where he doesn't ask and just hits them repeatedly. The only thing that seems to prevent them from going to court is that those being hit really want to move on and not attract any more attention to what they were trying to do when they met up with Carnicom. But that doesn't always work, as evidenced by the charge in Nebraska. In North Carolina, there's an active warrant for Carnicom after an altercation at a Target resulted in him being shot in the knee and fleeing the scene with the rest of his filming crew. Dap goes all over the country now, which means it's very possible that there are more warrants that I wasn't able to find. I want to circle back to that North Carolina incident for a sec. It starts like any other regular catch. A group of 3 guys, Carnicom, Mundy, and the deliciously named Jason Chips, march into a store filled with people so that they can confront an alleged predator they convince to meet up with a decoy. The group approaches the man, Dante Cantrell, but unlike most of the other videos, in this one the predator does not immediately fold and actually puts up some kind of resistance by slapping the phone out of Mundy's hands. Once this happened, Carnicom immediately drops his phone to join in on the altercation while a Target employee repeatedly tells all 4 men to stop.
What's up, boy? What's up, boy? Hey!
Cantrell eventually pulls out a gun and shoots Carnicom in the knee, who then runs out of the store with his group to his car and drives away. Now, consider what witnessing this whole sequence of events would do to a bystander, aside from the very real risk of them getting shot.
So I thought it was college kids that were playing around.
Jason Vega is a former security specialist at Target. He says he was in the vacuum area when the shooting happened.
Jason, they got a gun. He just kept mentioning that. And then I saw people start running, so I started running.
You could be a parent going grocery shopping with your 3rd grader, and suddenly there are 4 men getting in a fist fight 10 feet away from you. Then, after your child witnesses something that most parents do their best to shelter them from, a gun goes off, and these 3 guys run out of the store, leaving a trail of blood behind them. According to Dap, the man running away while covering the linoleum in his own blood is the one protecting your child. On November 5th, 2006, Bill Condrat shot himself in the head as a SWAT team made their way through his house, dying an hour later. Condrat had been talking with a decoy from the group Perverted Justice, who were working with local police. Condrat was supposed to go to a house outfitted with cameras and sound equipment, where his reaction was going to be the subject of a segment on To Catch a Predator. By the following year, local officials had resigned over the incident. Condrat's sister filed a lawsuit against NBC, and To Catch a Predator was canceled, in that order. Dads Against Predators operations have caused 4 people to commit suicide. Don't take my word for it. Local police have confirmed the coalition, and Dap will gleefully admit to this fact. On a recent live stream, one of the viewers inquired about how many suicides the group had caused, to which Jake Carnicom said 4. One of the people he was streaming with then proclaimed 4-0, which seemed to imply that he didn't know how scoreboards worked. Joshua Mundy bragged on his Instagram story that, quote, "We don't count arrests and catches, we count bodies." This is not the behavior of a group that wants to improve society. This is a cult of sociopaths that worship violence and adorn themselves in the skin of those that they kill. A crowd cheers them on as they do this, paying handsomely to see the violent fantasy enacted on their behalf. Blood and money drive these men to do what they do. Not protecting children, not scaring predators, not helping survivors. What does someone committing suicide do to improve society when you think about it? Dap says it would stop a predator from committing another crime against a child. Of course, that is entirely theoretical and impossible to prove on a per-case basis. What suicide does do is tear a hole in the lives of everyone connected to that person. There's no process for those connected to reckon with these facts, no opportunity to reevaluate what they thought of this person while they were still alive, or even to intervene and ensure that they would never try something like this again. To be clear, I don't have a shred of sympathy for the guys featured in these videos. They're pretty clearly pieces of shit that try to meet up with children so that they can take advantage of them in some of the most horrible ways imaginable. If I saw someone beating up another person that I knew for a fact had been trying to fuck kids, I can't say that calling the cops would be my first, second, or 43rd move even. But if the guy beating up pedophiles starts hiding their faces from the public, and, in turn, the social repercussions that come with being a pedophile, then I can't say that that guy is much better than the pedophiles themselves. A predator that commits suicide will never face consequences. They took the easy way out and will never feel pain again. They don't have to live in the world that they left behind, where their victims still have to feel the pain that they inflicted, where their family now has to put their lives back together without knowing the extent of what they did to others. This is what makes Dap a death cult. There's no love of anything good about life in Dads Against Predators. The goal is only violence and death. Using tactics that are extremely ineffective at exposing predators, Dap is willing to hide these predators behind a paywall so that they can make even more money. Once they have apparently exposed this predator, it is almost always impossible to send them to prison due to the group's actions, and all that Dap has done is give this person a free get-out-of-jail-free card. As a society, we generally accept the fact that death will not make the pain go away. Death only makes others feel pain. Dads Against Predators knows this as well. They know that none of this matters. If it did, they would do something to ensure that these predators face actual consequences. A fantasy that they are improving the world somehow. And it's a fantasy that you can join in on too. It only costs about $12 a month. Hey, thanks for watching the video. I just wanted to say quick that if you could like, comment, subscribe, that would be greatly appreciated. I wouldn't normally ask this, but I put a lot of work into it and I'm glad you liked it. Again, if you want to like, comment, subscribe, that classic combo, you can do all that. All of my videos are based on articles that I have written for my Substack, which is called Moss Planet. You can find a link to that in the description. I would also like to thank my wonderful editor, Viv, who edited this video. I will also put her contact info down there if you want to hire her for projects. And thank you so much again.